And Bill, I had talked to you a little bit off air about the biannual event that happens, 2010, 2012, 14, and it's happening all next week, Christ at the Checkpoint. And that is a conference in Bethlehem where people get together to talk about how mean the Israelis are to the Palestinians. Here's what Reverend Alex Awad says. He's a Jerusalem-born pastor. He said this at the previous conference. Our critics have recently accused Bethlehem Bible College and Christ at the Checkpoint of starting an intifada, an uprising in the evangelical church. I hope they are right. We want to see an intifada against injustice. We want to see an intifada against violence and terrorism. We want to see an intifada against racism. We want to see an intifada against theologies that promote war and bloodshed. I want from this podium to call on evangelicals everywhere to re-examine these detrimental theologies and shake them off. And Bill, I think the biggest change in my lifetime in the church, and there have been many changes in the church in my lifetime, the biggest one is the switch from churches being pro-Israel to following the advice of Pastor Awad, Alex Awad, as he just outlined. Would the churches stop being so pro-Israel and start being pro-Palestinian? Your thoughts, please, on this event?
Well, he has quite a reputation. He's notorious for some of his scathing statements that he does make. And, he just needs to open his Bible up and go from Genesis to Revelation and to fully understand that God gave Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and their descendants this covenant land, and no earthly leader has the right to determine the boundaries of that land. What's interesting, Jan, is one of the few arguments when Jewish believers in Jesus and Palestinian believers in Jesus, one of the areas that remains contentious is who has the rights to Judea, Samaria, and East Jerusalem, and the other portions, as they call West Bank. Palestinian Christians believe it's their land. The Jewish believers say, no, it's our land. It was given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and their descendants, and we're part of that. And isn't it amazing? I mean, it still is an issue between two opposing sides, between the Jewish and the Palestinians, or the Jewish and the Arab believers. And, this is a situation where, Jan, if you study the Word of God and don't take out those 27 or 28% of the Bible, those key scriptures of the Jewish prophets, you'll fully understand that land was given to the Jewish people, and no one has the right to divide that land. And that's really what it boils down to.
I agree, Bill. There are some evangelicals who attend this event. It's heavily the religious left, and it's heavily a week of just plain Israel bashing. And the checkpoint is, of course, the wall that Israel has built as a partition, which has reduced terrorism by some 90-some%. But these folks will never, ever talk about that. They play a quick soundbite of Tony Campolo talking about the prison that Bethlehem has become because of this wall that's keeping Israelis alive.
Well, I was overly impressed by the Palestinian Christian brothers and sisters who were there and the testimonies they gave of wanting a just and loving resolution of the incredible tensions that exist between the Palestinians and the Israelis. I also came away with an awareness of how Palestinian people have suffered. The wall was particularly offensive. A couple of times I had to go through the checkpoint, and there was a certain humiliation that the people standing in line were experiencing, because they had to wait long periods of time just to get to their jobs or just to get to a meeting. The sense of Bethlehem, for instance, becoming almost a prison for some people, not being able to get out or get in. I think they were all things that the people at the conference helped me to see and to grasp and to learn.
Well, I say it's better that these folks have to wait at a checkpoint than Israelis get their throats slit, which has been the case for years, and that wall of partition has cut that down by 90%.
Absolutely. That wall's been incredibly effective. And, there are Palestinian Christians that have had a difficult time. They've had to go through these checkpoints, but it's a warped sense of perspective here. The fact is, Israelis are tired of these recent slayings, guns and weapons and things like that, and security guards have been attacked at these checkpoints. It's become much worse since they've started these conferences. It hasn't got better. And these Palestinians have been incited by Palestinian TV, Hamas TV, and others, are waking up in the morning and say, I'm going to go kill a Jew today. And that's exactly what's happening. And I don't hear that from Campello and Lynn Hybels or anybody else. And those folks really ought to spend more time on what is happening to Christians in Syria, in Iraq, in other Middle Eastern countries where they are being persecuted by Al-Qaeda and ISIS and others. I mean, it is a humanitarian crisis right now in Syria, and many Christians have been dislocated, and a lot of them can't even get into our country. It's a mess. So the focus, once again, needs to be on the serious, very significant, serious problems that Christians are facing throughout the Middle East, and not this.
Well, again, this conference, Christ at the Checkpoint, it meets March 7th through 10th in Bethlehem Bible College. And folks, I'm going to ask you to pray about it next week. I'm not even sure how to ask you to pray, but pray that it's not very effective. And I don't believe Lynn Hybels is a speaker this year. She has been for many years, and I have a clip of her as well. We won't take time to play it, but again, she's just denouncing the occupation, and none of them grasp the Israeli perspective. And it's partly their replacement theology, Bill. It's partly the evils of what replacement theology brings about. So they can't seem to see that there's a legitimate cause on the side of Israel.
The God of Israel did not intend for the biblical heartland of Israel, Judea, Samaria, and East Jerusalem, to be an Arab state.
To the point. I can't say it any better.
That's exactly what it is.